The first week of the Sharks season is done. What did we learn this week?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking back at the week, trying to figure out what we learned, including that the defense is struggling, that we should see a 50-50 split in net, and the special teams might be solid for the San Jose Sharks this year. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So this is going to be kind of a new thing we're going to be trying to do this year is either every Monday or Tuesday, kind of depending on what the Sharks schedule is, but kind of what we learned from the past week, right? And we know the Sharks now are 0-2, 2 points, as they've lost 2 overtime games in which that they have led late into the third period, and games in which they ended up blowing said lead and then, of course, losing in overtime. So what like kind of the purpose is just kind of a nice little reset, is because you get kind of lost in the grind of a regular season, and everything that happens is kind of nice to just look back and see what we learned from the previous week. And I think you have to start with the defense, and what we learned is that the defense is still struggling despite all the additions that the Sharks made to the blue line this offseason, right? Veterans John Klingberg, Dmitry Orlov, Nick Leddy, and then, of course, you have newcomers Sam Dickinson all in the fray right now. Quickly, before we speak about the defense, both Jack Thompson and Lucas Carlson both placed on waivers today with the hope that they get unclaimed so they can be sent to the Barracuda. I don't expect either one of them to be claimed, but we shall see. Just before we get there. So we'll know more 11 a.m. Pacific time on Monday, what the status of both of those players are. Again, I have a feeling that they both get through, but we'll see. Anyway, back to what's happening right now. That the defense is struggling, right? And it's kind of that tough where you're trying to give some of these guys a little bit of a break as and trying to be patient, where these are new guys. And yes, they are all veterans with the exception of Dickinson. And, all these guys have played, like we talked about Saturday night, where all these guys have played a ton of games, but still new system, new faces, new everything, right? And getting into the groove of being on the defense here. And it's just frustrating where you're seeing a lot of mistakes, and it just feels like so far in the 2 games it feels like it's somebody new, right? And we talked about John Klingberg on Saturday night, and just a horrible performance from him, right? And you knew that when you signed John Klingberg, like, defense isn't John Klingberg's specialty. You brought him in to help drive offense and run the power play, which power play might look pretty good. We'll get to that later. But, Nick Leddy, who's had some up and down moments, Dmitry Orlov, who's had some up and down moments as well, I think it's fair to say. I think it's for them trying to kind of figure out what their roles are and what their expectations and what they're kind of supposed to do. I think once the defense starts to gel a little bit, you'll probably see less of these just horrific mistakes that the Sharks kind of keep creating and keep shooting themselves in the foot. They keep leading to these blown losses in the third period. Or if we could maybe talk to the NHL and just play 2 periods, probably feel a lot better about it. But I'll shoot Gary a text and see if he can make an exception for the Sharks and play 2 periods instead of the traditional 3. But and I like even coming out of Saturday, like the more I've thought about it, right? Shakir Mukhamadullin needs to be an everyday player because I do think he helps fix some of these issues, right? Shakir Mukhamadullin is going to, like, if he's playing on the penalty kill, I think that 1 takes John Klingberg out of it, and 2 that like Mukhamadulin's good at what you need on the penalty kill, right? Someone who can help clear the crease, someone who can, tie up guys, someone who's bigger and stronger. And Mukhamadullin is that guy. So my hope is again, what I'm hoping, that Mukhamadullin is an everyday player because he needs to be an everyday player, right? He's 24-year-old defenseman who's played, roughly half a season in the NHL. And yes, he's going to make his mistakes, but I would rather go with young Mukhamadullin making some mistakes than John Klingberg, who's played in the NHL for a bajillion years, making the same mistakes, right? Because the hope is Mukhamadullin will learn from his mistakes and not make the same mistakes over and over. Otherwise, John Klingberg, right, who couldn't tie anybody up on Saturday night, kept making that same mistake over and over. And not to say John Klingberg doesn't have a role, because he does clearly have a role in this team, right? And it is to run the power play and to help create offense. And again, he's good at what he does, but you're asking him to do something that he's clearly not good at, right? And that is trying to defend on the penalty kill. That is not John Klingberg's specialty. So hopefully this is a one-off situation, but I think for Ryan Warsofsky here, he's going to have to figure out what the defensive pairs look like. And Liljegren and Ferraro feel like, okay, like that's a pairing, right? And you kind of know that's a pairing. Those guys, for better or not, like those guys kind of work together, right? And they have enough chemistry, and like I don't really want to mess with that. I think that pairing, you don't love it, but it could be worse, right? Very much. So it's the bad pizza thing, right? Like it's bad pizza. It's still pizza, but there's definitely better pizza options, right? I do though, like how, like trying to, 1, get Mukhamadullin in the lineup, and 2, continually rotating Dickinson in, because Mukhamadullin should not be the one who's sacrificed if Dickinson comes in, right? Because I think you clearly have to look at these veterans and like a guy like Nick Leddy, kind of being that guy where, you know what, if Dickinson's going to play, like Leddy, you need to be the one to come out, because, right, Leddy's probably not – Leddy, Klingberg, neither one of these guys are going to be here long term. Both these guys, like, going to be like Klingberg, 100% trying to perform well enough to get himself traded at the trade deadline. And same thing with Leddy, right? Wants to kind of rebuild his brand and get traded at the trade deadline to a contender. Having these, like potentially limiting the growth of Dickinson and Mukhamadullin to get these guys in the lineup, and especially with what their roles are, I think this is going to be a question Warsofsky is going to have to kind of wrestle with over the next couple of weeks as the Sharks try to figure out this defensive grouping and this defensive pairs. Like Orlov is going to be an everyday player, and he's also here for the next, at least year and a half. And granted, he's had some tough moments, but I think though overall, like he's been solid-ish among the defensive group, right? And again, Ferraro, Liljegren, it's still pizza. But Klingberg, right? Klingberg's going to run your power play. Again, it's going to come down to that Leddy position, and I think he's the guy we're going to be looking at if we're going to try to get Dickinson in right now. And I think it's still going to be kind of a case-by-case scenario for Dickinson. Leddy's probably the guy that I would be looking at if I was Ryan Warsofsky, of, okay, can we get Dickinson in here and put him in a position to succeed and play him more than 12 minutes a night. So defense is struggling, but we're still trying to fine tune this thing right now. So with the defense, though, the net, and that's what we're going to be talking about next here, why I think the Sharks should go with the 50-50 split right now. Just every day, just every game, just rotating the cat, like, doesn't matter, just continually rotate until somebody kind of takes a hold of the net. So we're going to be talking about Nedeljkovic. We're going to be talking about Askarov here in just 1 second. Most people can't name all their financial accounts, even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is there for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It's like Puckpedia for your own personal finances. And the great thing about it is also if you're working with your partner, but you have separate accounts, you guys can still work together, whether you have shared long-term goals, buying a house, buying a car, or just planning your next adventure, but also keeping your money your money. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right. Before we continue, of course, want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe as we continue to get going at the start of the season. They can't lose every game the same way, can they? Right? If they do, you'll just watch me slowly dive into madness. So make sure you follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. The net. And I think what we've learned is neither player between Yaroslav Askarov and Alexander Nedeljkovic has claimed the net for himself, right? And, all things aside, Nedeljkovic played better than Askarov when there are two games, right? Except for 5 minutes from Nedeljkovic. But I think the Sharks, again, need to be 50-50 with it right now. And I would go Nedeljkovic on Tuesday against the Hurricanes. One, kind of, right? We know what happened against Vegas, right? Pat on the back, go out there and get him, kid, type of thing. And then this weekend, on Friday and Saturday, you have back-to-back. So the net is going to be split there. But I would still just constantly rotate. Okay, Nedeljkovic Tuesday, Askarov Friday, Nedeljkovic Saturday. That's the plan for this week. And then next week, when the Sharks have another back-to-back, like they just continually rotating here for the early part of the season, because Askarov, as we talked about on Saturday night, clearly struggling right now. And I don't know if it's more mental or what, but it does seem like Askarov is, like, my theory or hypothesis is that I just think Askarov is just trying to do too much right now, right? Where he's kind of taking on the weight of the world and what he's supposed to be for this franchise right now. I would, again, right, let him, you want him to work through it. You, of course, don't really have a viable third option that you feel super comfortable about, where you could send Askarov down to the AHL to let him regain his confidence. But I do think, though, for the Sharks, like, you have to kind of let him work through it right now. And he could, because, right, you paid too much for in picks and prospects to get Askarov here, right? And we know what Askarov is going to be. And we've seen Askarov perform very well, right? Last year, at 5-on-5, he played just as well as Mackenzie Blackwood last year in a, small sample size, but they were a similar sample size. We did this whole episode earlier this summer. I just think he's going through a little bit of a slump right now. And this is completely natural for young goalies and young players to have these ups and downs, right? Development isn't linear. There's ups and downs. And I just think right now we're at a valley with Askarov. Do I think Askarov is, a bust? And do I think he's going to be a terrible goalie? No. I think he's just struggling right now with if it's pressure, if it's mental, or if he's just gripping the stick too hard, or whatever it is. I do think Askarov, he's just struggling right now. I still think Askarov, by the end of the season, is going to have claimed himself as the number one goalie and the goalie of the future and the goalie of the now for the San Jose Sharks. I do believe in Askarov. I think Askarov has all the qualities to be a great goaltender. Just right now, it's just been a bad start to the season. If Askarov had started great and then had a slump in January, we'd probably be like, he's just going through a slump. That's fine. Askarov right now, unfortunately, he just had his slump to start the season. And the good thing is, though, I think it can only get better here from right. Like, it can't really get much worse for Askarov. So, and we did see flashes of brilliance from Askarov on Saturday night. But again, that 7-hole, which the Sharks have some time this week, right, with the game on Tuesday that you expect Nedeljkovic to be the starter, and then if Askarov doesn't play again until this weekend, that does give you some time to work on some of these tweaks and work on some of them, if it's mechanical or whatever it is for that 7-hole. It does give you some time for Askarov to take a deep breath and recollect himself, because I do think, like, with goaltending, it's so mental right now. So, and that's where, like, with Nedeljkovic, yes, he had a horrible end to his game against Vegas. I think he's gonna be fine, right? He made some jokes. I gotta go out there, shag a couple fly balls or whatever. Like, I expect Nedeljkovic to come out and have a strong game on Tuesday. And that's why I think you do have a 50-50 split right now. Just because Nedeljkovic, I feel like, does he have the ceiling that Askarov does right now? No, of course, right? But I just think Nedeljkovic is just going to be a little bit kind of more even keeled right now. He's a guy who's been through it. He's been traded. He's played on great teams. He's played in the playoffs. He's played on horrible teams. I just think right now for the Sharks, right, and especially after the last two games, just turning to Nedeljkovic right now, let him, come out on Tuesday. Hopefully he continues to play well, can rebound from there, and then give Askarov a little bit of time. But then again, right, it's that balance of, you don't want to, like, get into Askarov's head about if, like, kind of skipping his turn, right? And you want this to be 50-50 right now. And I think that is the best approach for the Sharks, is to be 50-50 net split right now and just take turns. Just take turns no matter what. You just take turns. That way the guys can kind of get ready, know exactly what's expected to them. And then in a couple weeks, you can kind of readdress it and see where everyone's at. And if Askarov is starting to come out of a slump, you can maybe start to give him a little bit more workload. If Askarov is struggling, then maybe you give Nedeljkovic a little bit more workload. Like, that's why you brought in Nedeljkovic, to kind of help out in this situation and kind of be that guy for Askarov when he needs it. So, but yeah, too early hit the panic button on Askarov. I'm 100% confident that he is still going to be the guy, right, for the San Jose Sharks. So we've seen too much brilliance from him, even in a short time here last year, for me to not think that this is just a slump to start the season. So guys go through slumps all the time. Like I said, it's just unfortunate his started at the beginning of the season for him. So, but although Nedeljkovic and Askarov both kind of going through it right now a little bit, I do think some positives from this weekend. The special teams might be solid. So we'll talk about the special teams here in just 1 second. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 of bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives so many different ways to play. They have parlays. So if you feel like a series of events are going to happen, I don't know, maybe the Dolphins blow a lead. Feels like a thing that they like to do. Or maybe your Sharks like to blow leads as well. So player props, again, I gave you guys the Darren Waller touchdown. I don't know what else you want from me. Or even follow the live lines during the games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something extra riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. All right. Before we finish up, of course want to thank you for making it Locked On Sharks your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Some positives. I think one of my big takeaways, I think the special teams are going to be solid. And I know right now, like if you look at the PK, it's at like 63%. But if you look at the power play, it's like 37% right now. Small sample size, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think you're going to see improvements from both these units compared to what we saw last year, right? Let's start with the power play, which does look more dangerous because this team, I think there's just more chemistry as you're bringing back a lot of the same players in the same positions, right? And this is something we've talked about this summer, right? You have Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund, and Smith occupying 4 of the top unit power play positions, and now you have John Klingberg in the mix. And granted, we just spent a whole first segment railing on John Klingberg. The guy can still run a power play, and you have 4 guys who played together last year on the top power play, all coming back. When was the last time the Sharks had this many players on the power play kind of coming back and knowing exactly what they're supposed to be doing? So it's been a while, right? It's been a while since the top power play unit looked the same for more than like 6 weeks. And I think this is a good sign that this power play has already kind of hit the ground running, and that the second unit, even without Michael Misa, is also looking pretty good, as Adam Gaudette got a goal on Saturday night. So I think the power play is going to be, again, if you go from worse to like mediocre, where you're like in the late teens, that's a big jump. From going from 26 to like 18, that would be a marketable jump for the San Jose Sharks. And if they can get the power play rolling around like that 20% clip, I think that is you're going to continue to see this offense grow and this team put up more points. As the goals haven't been a problem, right? It's been stopping the goals for the Sharks early in the season. So I do think the specialty, I think there's more depth, right? And you have guys who may better kind of fit. You're not kind of running out your Barclay Goodrows and Luke Cunnins on the second unit just because you don't have enough bodies. Like you have guys who legitimately can all contribute to the power play on the power play, right? And again, that's without Michael Misa, who I know hasn't even made his NHL debut, but the man can score goals. And I think he will score goals in the NHL once he gets acclimated. So I'm really excited about the growth in where the power play can go. I'm also actually really excited about the PK. And I know the PK gave up 2 goals to the Ducks, right? But I'm still going, like, if Shakir Mukhamadullin is on the PK instead of John Klingberg, I feel like the Sharks... I feel like Mukhamadullin would tie up Beckett Seneca a little bit better than what Klingberg did. And I think Mukhamadullin could tie up Kreider a little bit better than what Klingberg did there. But what you're seeing from it's a much more aggressive PK, especially from the forwards, right? And Tidal Andrea, who I think has really kind of found his role with his team, right? And he's a man, like he is a man possessed to start this season. Like he has been playing much better, playing much freer. Again, less fabric going from the 53 to the 10, less fabric for him to drag around. That's my theory. Just switching from 53 to 10, less fabric to drag around. But I do think like Dellandrea and Graf on the PK have been excellent. Barclay Goodrow has been solid as well. You saw William Eklund who can play on the PK as well. And then we haven't even gotten to like the Macklin Celebrini playing on the PK conversation, because it's going to happen here at some point with Celebrini as he continues his ascent into a top 5 NHL player. And, the hope is Sidney Crosby 2.0 or Sidney Crosby Jr. or whatever. Like Celebrini is going to be on this PK unit at some point. And that the hope is that kind of takes it from like, averages to like top 10-ish unit at some point. But I think with the Sharks, if they can figure out the defensive grouping a little bit better and having Mukhamadullin out there, I think will really help that. I do think this PK can be good. Like we saw it against a very good Vegas penalty kill or power play, right? That power play is ridiculous. The goal they got was one of those kind of set plays early into it, and the Sharks just couldn't react quick enough. But like when Vegas got set and started moving around, this penalty kill was really good in there and trying to limit some of those shot attempts. And yes, Vegas is going to get their shots, and that's where you need your goaltender to stand tall at times. But you've seen where I think this is a much more aggressive unit. They're not kind of just sitting there waiting; they're going out and attacking. And I would rather go down swinging like that, right? I would rather have my PK instead of my PK just standing there waiting for the puck. Like go hunt and get the puck and try to cause some chaos, right? I think it puts pressure on the power play to make decisions. And if they get one by you, they get one by you. But again, I'd rather go down swinging and see if you can cause some chaos. And hopefully with guys like Colin Graf and Dellandrea, who both got, they got a little bit of speed to them, maybe you can start seeing some shorthanded opportunities start to make sense. And then when a guy like Ethan Cardwell comes up and gets some PK time, then you're really cooking. Because if you haven't watched Barracuda games, Ethan Cardwell, the man knows how to create shorthanded opportunities. Like that is like he is excellent at creating shorthanded opportunities. And a potential Graf Cardwell combo out there on the PK, like sign me up for that. That is going to feed families, as the kids say. But I do think like, yes, tough week with the losses, but there's still like stuff to be excited about and what we're kind of learning about this team as it's starting to hopefully exit this rebuild here. So like I kind of mentioned earlier, we got a big week with this week. We got the Hurricanes on Tuesday at the Shark Tank there. And then I believe I can pull up the schedule right now. I believe it's the Mammoth on Friday. And then the Penguins on Saturday. So first road game is on Friday against the Mammoth. And then they come home and play the Penguins on Saturday before they start their annual October East Coast trip to play. They'll play like all the New York teams there, the Islanders, Rangers, and Devils. So New York, New Jersey teams, but and where they have a back-to-back as well next week. So nice 4 p.m. back-to-back. 4 p.m. Eastern swing. Like I love the 4 p.m. games on the East Coast. It's great when you don't have to stay up till midnight every night after a game. So, but yeah, I think that's what we learned this week. The defense is struggling. They got to figure out their combo. The Sharks should do a 50-50 net split right now. And I think the special teams are going to be solid this year, which would be a big improvement over being bad from last year. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.